What's up everybody, this is the 2023 Chevy Colorado Z71. So about the Colorado, well, it's all new for the 2023 model year and carries over basically unchanged for 2024 as well, aside from adding a ZR2 Bison trim for that 2024 model year. But anyway, as far as the Colorado here, so it got a ton of changes after being long overdue for an update, and so it's really nice. It's on a 3.1 inch longer wheelbase now. The styling is completely changed, of course, and up front I think it's a really nice look now. So the Z71 is the top, more luxurious trim until you get up to the ZR2. But as far as the lights, like you have some nice LED accents in these lights, but that is something you don't get in the lower trims, which have some simpler headlights, unfortunately. But you have some nice LEDs here on this one. You also have some shorter overhangs here, both in the front and in the back, which helps with your approach and departure angles, which have all been improved. You have a smaller front air dam there than the previous generation, which certainly helps with off-road capability. And even the Z71 trim already has 8.9 inches of ground clearance, and if you want more, you can go up to the Trail Boss version, which is also new for the Colorado here for the 2023 model year. That gives you 32-inch tires, a 2-inch lift, extra suspension travel, and then there's of course the ZR2 on top of that with locking front and rear diffs, Multimatic spool valve dampers, and all kinds of other off-road goodies. But even here on the Z71, it comes standard with 4-wheel drive with a low range. You have a limited slip differential in the back, and should still be really competent, again, for people who don't need more than what this already provides. The other big change here though for the 2023 Colorado is the fact that they really simplified the lineup. So they only have 4 trims now, and as far as the body styles, it's all crew cab, all short box. That is the only configuration it comes in now. They said that the demand for the other configurations was just way too small to justify keeping them all around. So you have a 5-foot 2-inch bed there in the back. And as far as the bed in the back goes, it's also really cool. It's got a couple of tricks up its sleeves. It has the usual tie downs, power outlet. There's even little cutouts there for dirt bike tires there in the front wall of the bed. But my favorite part about this new truck bed here is that you have a lockable watertight storage compartment there that's about 45 inches wide and about 4 inches deep. It even has a drain plug so you can put ice in there or whatever you want to do. But really cool little bonus space. And I think it actually gives some extra cool dimension to the tailgate there on the outside of it as well. And I really like those taillights there in the back. I still love how you also still have a step built into the bumper, no retracting stuff or anything complicated. It's just a nice easy step that's nicely integrated, doesn't look weird or anything, and really helps in combination with those grab handles there in the side of the bed as well. Just a nice easy bed to get into, and I think it just did a really great job with that as well. But I mean, the side profile is really great too. It's very squared off. I like the kind of flared out fenders, and especially here in this glacier blue metallic color in the sun, this thing really looks nice. I think it's a really good looking truck. The interior of the 2023 Colorado is pretty cool. So, it's all completely redone, of course, but it's interesting that even though this vehicle has a 3.1 inch longer wheelbase and shorter overhangs, you'd think that maybe that would increase the interior space a little bit, but on the opposite, actually, you have less headroom, about 1 inch less headroom than before, and I believe you actually lost a tiny bit of rear legroom as well. It's not super noticeable, but, just don't expect this to be any roomier than the previous generation Colorado. You might actually find it to be a tiny bit tighter, but it's really cool. I mean, I love the dashboard design here. I like how you have this very rubberized, grippy kind of vinyl there on the dash with the stitching and the round air vents and all that. It's actually a pretty cool look. And the really impressive thing is the standard technology here. You have an 8-inch digital gauge cluster as standard. This 11.3-inch touchscreen is standard as well. And I'll get into all that in a minute. But first, let's get into the basics here. The seats are nice, soft, comfortable leatherette seats here in the Z71 trim. Of course, you can go down to cloth in the lower trims, but these ones also are optionally heated and ventilated. Now that is something that's an extra option package on top of a regular Z71, but it's really nice. You can get cooled seats in a mid-sized truck. That's something you couldn't get a few years ago, and so it's really nice that they offer that. And they're pretty comfortable seats so far from the little bit of time that I've spent in them. I have no complaints with them whatsoever. The steering wheel here is also a nice wheel, has a nice 9-3 grip, and has just a few buttons here on it. It's also heated as an option, which is great. You can get that as well. And just a nice steering wheel with the little buttons here on the back of the wheel still as well. One other thing though in this area that you might notice is that you have your turn signals stock here, but you don't have any kind of headlight switch. That is in the screen. That's one of the controversial switches, is to minimize parts. They just put the headlight controls in the touchscreen here. Now it's always on there with that little light bulb icon, so you can reach it easily. You don't have to go into a sub menu, but it still is just a little unfortunate. Some people just like manually controlling their lights still, even though auto headlights are definitely usually the way to go. But interesting that they've made that switch. and that's also the window lock button isn't in the door here anymore. That's also in the screen. But aside from that, not a big deal. But these gauges are nice. They're a little small considering the cluster looks like it could fit a larger screen, and it actually does fit a larger screen whenever you go into the GMC Canyons. But here you're stuck with just the smaller screen. But it has a decent amount of customization to it. It's a little slow. All the software is a little slow reacting in this vehicle still. It just seems like it needs a little bit of a faster processor or something. But, not a big deal, and it's cool you have like the off-road page there and a few other things. And so, it gets the job done. Coming over to the center, though, this touchscreen is great. It has wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, and, it has a volume knob, which is great. And it's pretty easy to navigate everything once you kind of, learn it a little bit here. But, it's pretty simplified. It also has Google Maps as the navigation system. And so, that'll be either good or bad depending on how you feel about that. But at least you have the smartphone integration so you can have whatever map apps you want on there. And satellite radio tuning and all that is pretty easy to do, and just a good system, no complaints, honestly. You also have this nice row of hard buttons here in between your climate control knobs, with dual zone climate control being available and this one having that. And I love the little screen within the knob, great use of space there, and just a few little buttons here beneath the other air vents there. And here in these upper trims you also have a wireless charging pad with a USB and USB-C jack. And then otherwise, you just have a pocket in the door here, like a little bottle holder. And then you also have two cup holders, the center armrest, which is very rough. I don't know if that would feel great with, a bare elbow on there for a long time, but it's rugged, I guess. So it's, kind of fits the vibe of this truck, but still not the most comfortable. But anyway, you open that up and you will see the two levels of storage there and another power outlet in there. And so, a good amount of space. You also have a little bit of this rubber texture again here down by your knee area. It's better than hard plastic, but still not super plush or anything. But again, we're talking about a truck that's supposed to be rugged, so I'm not going to complain about that too much. And so, just a nice thing up front here. Now going on to the back seat. It's tight. I'm 5'9", so I'm not a huge guy, but me sitting behind myself, I have about 1 inch of rear legroom to spare there. So, if you are even 6 foot tall, consider that back seat to be useless for adults. It's just really small. I guess they just, suggest everyone go up to a full-size truck if you want a usable back seat. But it's just unfortunate that, it's just so tight and they couldn't have just opened up a little bit more space. And, a lot of the other competitors are also in their switchover year here where they're getting new versions. And so I haven't had a lot of experience with the brand new ones that have coming out. But I think even current gen trucks, there's some that offer even a little bit more space than this does. And so anyway, just a little underwhelmed with that. But they have lots of amenities. They have two cup holders here in the top. They even have air vents and USB-C jacks and a regular plug back there. There's also a fold down center armrest here in these upper trims with two more cup holders in there, bottle holders in the doors. So lots of stuff for whoever can fit back there, but just wish it was a little bit bigger. But let's start it up and go for a drive. The Colorado here has this newer Chevy key, which is kind of cool with the taper. And, just a nice heavy key, but a little bit of trim here. It's a little nicer than, past Chevy keys, but nothing crazy. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start here in all Colorados for 2023, which is great. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off here in the 2023 Colorado. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, well, I think the first thing I'm noticing is actually it's got a pretty quick throttle response. It feels like it kind of wants to take off on you a little bit. It's not, tricky or anything, but I just noticed it just feels like it's ready to give you the power you're looking for. Also, brakes are nice and responsive right towards the top of the brake pedal there. You kind of got to be a little bit delicate with your brake inputs, but they're nice and grabby as a result, so I feel very confidence-inspiring. Other things here, you have great visibility, good view forward. I like the little ridges in the hood there. It's kind of cool. View out of the sides is great. If you want better visibility, you can get a 360-degree camera here in the Colorados, and of course you have a backup camera as standard, and it does have like trailer guidance, but you can also get extra stuff with trailer views. There's even underbody cameras you can get here on the Z71 and the ZR2s. There's forward-facing cameras and all that, and those actually came in very handy in my GMC Canyon video whenever I was doing some actual off-roading, and that in the AT4X version of that, which again is very, very similar to the Colorado here. So anyway, it's great you have all that tech. This one does not have that. Those are extra cost options, but good to have all the basic safety stuff covered, and I'll talk more about the other safety features later on. But otherwise, you know, it's a pretty smooth ride. I think the 3.1 inches of extra, you know, wheelbase length are going to give you a little bit more stable ride, a little bit of a smoother ride than before as well. Of course, they've completely redone everything with the chassis and the suspension and all that to, you know, improve everything. And I mean, admittedly, it's been many years since I've driven the last generation Colorado, but what I can say is that, you know, this feels very nice, and it does, I think, feel a little tighter, for example, than the Nissan Frontier, which is the only like current generation truck that I've driven out of all these new ones that are coming here in the next, you know, several months here into 2024. But you know, it just feels nice and tight. Steering is also, you know, nice and tight for a truck. You know, it's not super quick or anything, but just it all feels really good, and you know, just feels very responsive and like it's going to do what you want it to do. And there's no sport mode here in the Colorado, so let's just turn out onto this back road and see how it does in normal mode. Here we go. There we go. Wow, it took it a second, and then this motor pulls nice and strong. So it's the 2.7 liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. It does 310 horsepower, 390 pound-feet of torque. In this configuration, this is the mid-level trim. There's also a base tune of this same engine that does like 237 horsepower, way less horsepower. But basically what Chevy has said is that for all three different tunes of this motor, the top one is in the ZR2, just gives you an extra 40 pound-feet of torque. But with all three versions, they all outperform the motors they replace. So there used to be a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. The base turbo motor does more power and torque than that does. You know, this mid-level trim replaces the V6, and this does, you know, more horsepower and torque than those do. And then that top version in the ZR2, I mean, it is, you know, with that extra torque bump, I mean, you're talking more power than even the old torque of the old diesel motor. So I mean, very, very punchy. And the great thing about the turbo motors is, you know, adding a turbo and replacing those naturally aspirated motors means that you have lots of torque down low, and especially those of you who do appreciate diesel powertrains, you're going to feel, you know, a nice meaty punch from those turbos, as long as the transmission is, you know, in the right gear and ready to give you the power and doesn't give you a delay like it did, you know, for me there on that first acceleration. But the transmission, by the way, is an 8-speed automatic transmission that they all come with here in the Colorados, and so far it's done a pretty good job. I haven't had any complaints aside from, again, that delay on a full throttle, you know, acceleration. But otherwise, it's been picking the right gears, hasn't been doing anything weird or annoying, and I have no complaints with it. But we're on this little bit of a rougher road that often generates some extra road noise, and, you know, still pretty quiet for, you know, a non-luxury, just a little mid-sized truck. I think it's actually, you know, pretty quiet, and I'd say it's probably quieter probably than the Frontier from my memory of that. But anyway, coming up from corners here, I always take, and let's see how the Colorado handles. So it's, you know, pretty nice and stable here. So, you know, here on this Z71, we have these Goodyear Wrangler all-terrain tires. So, you know, I mean, nothing super off-road ready, but also, you know, not totally street tires, but you do have some off-road capability here with these tires. So as a result, you know, I mean, you have, you know, fairly low limits, but honestly, it's pretty nice and flat handling. It's really composed, and these new trucks are, you know, miles ahead of what you got on the old trucks back in the day. I think, you know, the only one I will say is that even the current or past generation Ranger here, those felt a little flatter with the handling, but those also, I think the one I drove didn't have, you know, sportier tires like this does, you know, so I think that was a little bit more street oriented than this. But, you know, so it's a mid-sized truck. I'm not going to dissect the handling. It's fine. You're not going to complain really, and yeah, you know, I think it's a smooth ride, handles well enough, and good enough. Other important truck things I mentioned about the Colorado here are the towing and the payload. So towing is 7,700 pounds, which is really, you know, top of the class, really matches what the Jeep Gladiator offers, and, you know, a good amount of towing, and that is what you get on the Z71 version. By the way, the ZR2 will go down, but here, when you do this motor, you know, with the non-off-road ready setup, that's going to be your towing capability. And then as far as payload, it's just under 1,600 pounds here for a Z71, and so, you know, all very competitive numbers. And you know, but here we are just, you know, climbing a hill and just leaning into that torque a little bit, where previously with a V6 or something, you have to, you know, rev up the engine and do a bunch of commotion. This, you just lean into that boost a little bit and it just carries you up the hill, and it's just a really nice extra bit of power to have here in those lower RPMs. And it puts down the power really well thanks to this limited slip differential you have here on the Z71 and also on the ZR2s, and it's an option on others. But you also have, you know, in addition to the drive modes, you do have, you know, the 4-wheel drive system here with this controller switch, which does have an auto mode if you don't want to mess with, you know, switching what traction setup you have. You can always just leave in that auto mode, and it'll intelligently try and switch over to 4-wheel drive when it needs to. But you also have, like I said, 4 low, and you also have the different drive modes, which will custom tailor things. And you'll do like 1-pedal driving in the terrain mode. Then there's an off-road mode, which will give you some other adjustments, and tweak everything for better performance in those different metrics. There's also a tow mode, and so it's nice that it has those. And I believe you get the Baja mode in the ZR2, and again, all that stuff kind of transfers over, and is very impressive. I got to experience all that in the Canyon. It also feels a little bit better over rough bumps, so I just had a little bit of an expansion joint kind of thing there, and you get less of the shimmies and the shakes than you did in the past generation, I think. And just body control and everything just seems pretty good. Again, for the type of vehicle this is, the price point and all that, I think it's pretty well done. And now out on the highway here in the Colorado, it's a really nice cruiser still. You have a little bit of wind noise, but it's a mid-sized truck. It's not too bad. And we are going around this gentle highway corner here. We got some lower speeds because we got some traffic here. But so I do have the lane keep assist system on, which is something you do get as standard, along with automatic emergency braking. Those are standard, along with auto high beams. And so it's not one of the best systems. It's not trying to be a hands-free system or give you any kind of advanced assistance, but it certainly helps to keep you in your lane a little bit if you're wandering for whatever reason. But a lot of the other stuff is still an extra cost option, and even on the Z71 here, I don't have adaptive cruise control. I do have blind spot monitoring, but that's also an extra cost option for blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert. You got to add all that extra stuff on if you want. And most other vehicles these days do throw that kind of stuff in as standard. Some of the mid-sized trucks, it's not quite as standard across the board as it is in other, passenger vehicles, but still, it'd be nice to see those things thrown in, since, it is a growing trend here. But the one other really nice thing about this turbo engine on the highway is that you have, lots of passing power without having to downshift a zillion gears. It's just lean into that boost once again. You have all the passing power you need. These turbo motors are just so much nicer from a drivability standpoint, versus having a million downshifts and a bunch of racket with, an actually aspirated engine. It just suits these kinds of trucks better, in my opinion, and it's just really nice to cruise on the highway here as a result. So that's all my initial impressions, but thanks to Chevy, I will have this truck for an entire week, so I'm going to drive around some more here, then I'm going to come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how it compares to the competition, and anything else I noticed here during my week of driving. Alright, so I've been driving the Colorado for a couple more days here now, and it's still a really nice truck to live with. I love, the turbo power here. Every once in a while, the transmission tries to hypermile a little bit, and I wish it was a little quicker to downshift and wasn't lugging itself so much, but it's pretty minor, and overall it's still, pretty well-behaved powertrain in my opinion. But there were a couple little minor complaints that I had, just with the interior, honestly, during the extra days that I was spending here. The first is that I noticed that there's a squeak here on this armrest. Just feels kind of cheap. This armrest as well on this side is actually not very comfortable to rest your elbow on for long periods of time. It's also a little high for my body type, but that'll come down to how you're shaped. But as far as the actual surface, it's just actually wasn't comfortable to rest my elbow on, even with a coat on and extra padding and stuff. Still just not great there. So I appreciate the rugged vibe of this truck, and it is still a truck. I'm not expecting anything super luxurious. You're going to want to go up to the GMC Canyon for that, where that's a little plusher feeling. But, just overall the quality for this truck's as tested price of over $47,000. It's a truck. Once again, it's a different pricing scale than the average $47,000 car. But still just, leaves me wanting a little bit of a nicer fit and finish from the interior. One thing I was pleasantly impressed with, though, was this stereo. So this one, even though this is a, $47,000 Z71, pretty well loaded, this one doesn't have the option box ticked for the Bose stereo that I believe you can get in these. And so this has the regular stereo in it, and it actually sounds pretty good. I was like, wow, like this is like a non-branded regular Chevy stereo in a Colorado, and I was like, this actually sounds pretty good, not bad. So if you aren't someone who must have the absolute best stereo no matter what, I think most people will be very happy with this base stereo. But the last two things here to mention about the Colorado are the fuel economy and the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So as far as fuel economy goes, these are rated at 17 mpg in the city, 21 on the highway, and 19 combined. And in my driving here, now I didn't do a ton of driving, I just didn't have as much time to drive this truck this week as I would have liked, but over my driving here, I've been been averaging 16.5 mpg, which is actually pretty good because oftentimes I get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in my driving, which is mostly short trips around town, suburban kind of driving, nothing that, you know, is on the highway really. And so honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. I was expecting maybe to get a little lower fuel economy than what I'm getting here. So to be almost hitting that city number, I'm actually pretty happy with. And I mean, yes, we're still talking about 16.5 mpg out of a turbo 4-cylinder, small-ish truck. You know, you'd hope for a little bit more. And there are, you know, going to be better fuel efficient options now with the new Tacoma with its hybrid setup that you can get. But this is still par for the course, and, you know, it lives up to those ratings at least. So you're not going to be caught off guard. If you get one of these, it does what the window sticker claims as far as fuel economy goes. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the last thing to mention is the pricing and how it compares to the competition. So the Colorado in general starts right over $30,500, and then this Z71 trim starts right around $41,500, and then this one, as tested, is just over $47,000. And so, you know, clearly loaded up with some options. So even a Z71, which is kind of the top trim outside of the ZR2, you know, it still has a lot of stuff you can add on in order to get it as nice as this one has, with the heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel, wireless phone charger, and all that. And, you know, at that price point, I think that it's pretty competitively priced, to be totally honest. It's not the cheapest out there. You know, the Nissan Frontier, with it giving it a heavy refresh, it's still based on the old truck, but still has a new engine, new transmission, and, you know, does have some fresher styling inside and out. But those, for comparable one, now you can't get them as well loaded as this has. Like, you can't get cooled seats in a Frontier. You don't get big screens as big as this. They still have analog gauges. You know, there's a few setbacks there, but as close to a comparably equipped one as possible. Those are $44,000. But again, you're missing out on a lot of key stuff that this one has. So, you know, I really think that the Frontier really doesn't offer much of a bargain. The only real angle for the Frontier is the fact you can get it in different bed lengths, and you can also still get a king cab, like shorter, you know, 2-door version, whereas this, again, is only crew cab and only the short box. So some extra flexibility there with the Frontier. The Tacoma also offers that. But, you know, so as far as Frontier goes, I really feel like this is actually pretty bargain priced, you know, even compared to that, if you are, again, accounting for what you actually get in this compared to the Frontier. Plus all the extra power. That is an old V6, which some people might appreciate the old V6, but, you know, with this, you have, you know, the turbo punch, you have way more power, way more torque, way more towing. And so, you know, I think that these days, with this now out and being priced the way that it is, I think that, you know, it actually is a better buy than the Frontier. Now, as far as, you know, the Tacoma, I mentioned that also having the option of different bed lengths, different cab sizes. You know, we don't have the pricing for that as of the time of me filming this here, so I can't say pricing wise how it compares, whether it's going to be more expensive, less expensive, or what, but that does have some cool stuff, like the fact you can get, again, even more torque than this offers with the top versions of the Tacoma. They also offer a manual transmission in the Tacoma here for the new one, and it's finally a new Tacoma that also has turbocharged 4-cylinder power. You know, so that's going to, you know, really pair nicely with this, and also gives you all the same kind of features and big screens and all that kind of stuff. So again, that one is just hard to say with pricing, but that's just another one that's worth considering, you know, if you're watching this again whenever those are out. I don't think Tacoma's going to come till probably next year, early next year, since it's a 2024 model year, but you know, still one to consider. But as far as other competitors go here, you have the Canyon from GMC. Again, same vehicle, same engine, same everything, same space, just different styling and a little bit different styling on the inside here, but still most of the stuff with the inside is even the same. But, you know, the Canyon will come down to subjective taste as far as whether you like the styling better. That does have some more luxurious ones available, but the thing about the Canyon that's worth considering, even if you don't care about the extra luxury, is the fact that you, on all Canyons, get the top high output motor with the extra 30 pound-feet of torque that you don't get here in this, unless you go for the ZR2 version. So if you're wanting the most power without going up for a full wild off-road ready, you know, version of these trucks, the Canyon could make some sense, you know. And so that's also competitively priced. For a comparable one to this, you kind of just go down to a base Canyon and then load it up with options to get pretty close to what the Z71 offers here. But those are, you know, right around maybe $1,000 or $1,500 more than this for that extra torque, you know, the GMC styling, and you know, interior materials are going to be pretty similar for that base Canyon. But again, you can get a Denali trim for that now, which has, you know, the Bose stereo and has some really nice trim on the inside. So then the other oddball competitors, you know, right now there's the Ford Ranger. I haven't driven that one yet, so I can't say, you know, what the Ranger is like, but we do have pricing for that one. That's another one coming here in 2024. But those, for comparable Ranger, is going to run you about $50,000. So it's a little more expensive than this. We will see as far as interior space and stuff if it makes its case for the extra upcharge, but it's just more more expensive, you know, with being pretty comparable with everything you get, you know, for the most part. So the last two real oddballs to, you know, talk about here, I guess, are the Gladiator, which for a comparable Gladiator, it's 12 grand more, basically, way more expensive, but that is going to be the most off-road capable one. Then the last one on the other end of the spectrum is the Honda Ridgeline. I really love the Ridgeline. It's a unibody truck, which I know is an immediate deal breaker for a lot of truck buyers. But if most truck buyers are honest with themselves, the Ridgeline is enough truck for what people actually use their truck for, and it has a much smoother ride. You have more space on the inside. You have some really cool stuff with like an in-bed storage cooler that's like the size of an actual large cooler. You know, you have the swing open tailgate. A lot of really cool, well thought through things in the Ridgeline. And for 2024, it does get a new refreshed interior that makes it a little more competitive and modern. We don't have pricing for those new 2024 Ridgelines again at the time of me filming this, but I think, you know, those are about $46,000 at least for the pre-2024s. The 2023s, you know, around 46 grand, you know, $1,000 less than this, pretty comparably equipped. I don't believe you can get cooled seats in those either, but, you know, otherwise you have, you know, most of the same kind of options, and just a really good truck, and I think a nicer truck to live with, again, if you don't have to have a, you know, actual body on frame kind of truck. But, you know, I mean, the fact that everything is so closely priced shows just how good Chevy did with pricing this truck here, that it's really neck and neck with everything. It's just going to come down to your personal preference, what you're looking for out of a truck. But it's great that, you know, you have these screens as standard. And so I think, you know, especially when you're going in the lower trims of the Colorado, where this stuff is still standard, that's where it makes a big case for itself versus some of the other vehicles, which their lower trims are going to give you, you know, less equipment, less impressive tech. You know, I think that could be the strongest value proposition. But as far as even the Z71 that I have here, I think it's very well priced, and I think it's, you know, a very compelling option there. And I'm really glad that we have a great new generation of the Colorado and the Canyon here from General Motors, and I think they're both really well done. Definitely check out my Canyon review if you want to see what the AT4X, the more off-road capable version, is like. I do some intense off-roading in that, along with my regular full review, so definitely check out that video here at the end of this one. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks to GM as well for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. And yeah, take care.